One night in early 2012, my girlfriend and I went out with a friend. I don't remember everything we did that night, but the last thing we did before we dropped off our friend was go out to eat. It was late, probably around 2 a.m. We pulled out of the parking lot to leave, and a car pulled out right behind us. As we went on our way, it followed us. We were in a busy part of town, so we didn't think much about it. However, my girlfriend is pretty cautious about things like that. So, instead of going the most common route to drop our friend off at her car, she decided to cut through. It's mostly a woodsy area, but there are several houses spread out in one spot, and there are some type of business buildings. We almost never see anyone driving there, especially at night. But when we turned, so did the car behind us. No big deal, maybe they live on one of these roads. Every turn we made, the car made. It was starting to weird me out. Luckily, our friend was still oblivious. I'll say here that my girlfriend is a speed demon. She drives like a bat out of hell. She started slowly picking up speed, and the car did too. Finally, she just got tired of it and floored it. I don't remember how fast we were going. I just know it was faster than she usually drives on those roads, and that's faster than what was safe. Anyway, this car's doing its best to keep up with us, even when we were going down the road with the business buildings instead of the one with the houses. The car still followed us. By now, our friend realizes what's going on, and she is freaking out in the back seat. We finally get back to the main road, and we don't see the car anymore. We get back to my friend's work parking lot, where she left her car, and we were sitting there for a few minutes, trying to calm her down so she can drive home. Then, the same car pulls into the parking lot with us. We sit there for a few minutes, just trying to figure out what these guys are pulling. About a minute later, another car pulls in and parks right across from the other car. The guys in both cars get out and are standing there, staring at us. My girlfriend started the car again, and they got into the first car, the one that was following us. As we pulled out of the parking lot, I made sure I got a good look at their faces so I'd know them. We go across the street to a diner, because it was the only place that was open on this side of town that late at night, and I've always been told to go where there are people. We were also hoping that our favorite waitress would be there so we could tell them about our craziness. She wasn't there, so the three of us go head to the bathroom, and between waiting in line and talking, it takes about 10 minutes. When we walk out the doors that sectioned off the bathrooms from the rest of the diner, they were sitting in a booth directly across from the doors, and they were both staring. My girlfriend and I noticed them, our friend didn't. We got out of there and went back to the car. The whole time, they watched us through the windows. They had even parked right beside our car. We got in, locked the doors, and we went back to drop off our friend. I wouldn't let her get out of the car until I made sure that nobody was lurking. I told her to go straight home to make sure she wasn't being followed and to let us know that she got home and was inside. We went back to the diner parking lot to make sure the guys were still there, which they were. We were there maybe 2 minutes, then we left. The whole way home, we were checking to make sure we weren't being followed. When I was a kid, somewhere between 7 or 10 years old, I used to go visit my cousins a lot when they came, because my uncle died a couple years before they had to move really far with my aunt's family. So when they came to visit, they stayed in my family friend's house. They lived in a small town up north, in a 2-floor home, surrounded by the woods. My older cousin and I were pretty close, therefore usually went into the woods together, alone to play. We used to pretend we were witches, and we had to make some potions or something like that. So we would spend hours looking around for rare plants and flowers, and we would gather them. That day, we went too far away looking for what my cousin called the best weapon ever. She talked about pomegranates that we would take away from a tree which we climbed. Doing that, we took a big amount of time, and the sky started to turn dark while we were out. We knew our dog was close, and we felt safe, so we really didn't bother about it. He was a big guy who was always protecting us from anything barking and biting. The thing is when we finished, we could barely see a few feet ahead. My cousin didn't remember exactly what happened, but even today, she still dreams about it, and I look at her horrified. We were heading home, pretty close to the fences of the crops, when we both heard some crackling sounds behind us. My cousin looked the other way, disoriented, trying to figure out the noise and grabbing a stick. The dog pulled down his tail, which I had never seen before. hiding behind us. Then I saw what I thought for many years to be a ghost. He was small for being a man, but he had a pretty wide back. He had such a slender silhouette and wore a black hood with dark blue jeans. He was static and in a weird squat position. He was staring at us between the bushes. When I saw him, he started to stare at me deeply. I could feel his eyes tearing apart my body. So cold and strong, his look hurt. I spent a few seconds quiet, with my mouth half open and trying to communicate with my cousin. Then the dog ran away, which made my cousin turn back to me. I told her what I saw, looking at her with tears in my eyes and grabbing her hand. When we looked back, he wasn't there. Because I used to have night terrors and hallucinations, she really didn't believe me that he was real. Anyways, we ran back to the house. When we arrived, we were home alone with the son of our friend's parents. They went out for dinner. I was so scared, they decided to take me to the second floor and tell me that they'll protect me from what I saw. I started to look through the window, telling them that I wanted to make sure that the bad man didn't follow us, but he did. We all saw a silhouette in the woods, closer to the fence, staring out at the window. I felt the biggest shiver I have ever felt and started to cry, shaking and almost peeing myself from fear. When our parents came home, he had left and we decided not to tell them anything. When I was in the car going back home, I spent the whole night looking through the window scared. Since that, I had nightmares about the look he gave me for months, forgetting the whole deal after. When I was around 16, I started to remember him again, dreaming about him so much, I even started drawing his face in school. Anytime I remember him, I would shiver and my hands would start shaking, so I even avoid using this story when we talked about creepy things in Halloween, and I never told my parents or my friends. A month or so ago, I was with my boyfriend in the car, going to his house for the first time. He lives in a town that's very close to the one where I used to stay, where I saw the hooded guy. He knows a lot of country roads, so we would start going through one in the woods. In one of the corners while driving, he told me, "What a creepy guy. Do you imagine that he starts to follow us?" and laugh. Then I turned around, looking at what he was talking about, and I saw him. The same silhouette with the same hood. He didn't stare at me this time, and I don't really know if it was really the same guy, but he definitely had the same body and gave me the same shivers. Now I always ask him to take me the other way and avoid sleeping alone. I've been more than 3 years without a single hallucination and didn't realize we were in a town that was so close to where it happened until we got home. I know it's really hard to believe it was the same guy, but in that moment, it really felt like it was. So much I started to cry and shake. He never followed my cousin or me. It only happened that one time, but I would never accept to go into the woods at night again. And I still fear camping, just in case he shows up. It was a total casual encounter, but his looks and the way he stared, it's a nightmare situation for me. This was about 6 years ago. It was summertime, and being that there's not a lot to do in my town, my friends and I spent most of the days getting dropped off at the mall just to walk around. In the mall we were at, there is a two-way walkway that is split in certain areas by holes in the floor. They are surrounded by glass barriers and railings. So basically, if you're on the second floor, you can look over the railing to the first floor. On this particular day, we had been in the mall for a few hours and were walking past a few stores on the second floor. That's when we realized that there were about 6 really tall guys standing against the railing staring at us. They looked to be about 6'2" to 6'5". We think it's a little strange, but decided to go into the store and not worry about it. We were still freaking out. Unfortunately, the store next to where we were had an all-glass front, so they could still see us, and we could tell they were watching. We decided to leave the store and go into a different one because this was just way too freaky. We tried a store on the other side of the walkway, down a little ways, and that's when it really got scary. The shortest guy in the group would walk into the store and would stand at the doorway. Again, we thought that this was maybe a coincidence, so we decided to go from store to store, and each time they followed us. Each time standing right by the front of the store waiting for us. At this point, the details got blurry, mostly because I started having a panic attack. We went down the escalator and started calling our moms to pick us up. One of my friends suggested we go down the long corridor into the girls' bathroom, which I said no to because I don't think that they were just going to stay outside just because it was the girls' bathroom. Finally, we went outside and got picked up, but I remember feeling that I just wanted to be outside and away from being watched. In August, I moved into my first apartment. I graduated from university, was offered a job as a teacher, and was well on my way to figuring out this whole adult life. I moved in with a longtime friend, and neither of us had any complaints about our apartment complex. Our complex is very nice. It's not a wonderful part of town, but it's truly a diamond in the rough. The complex is well maintained, clean, and the other members have been nothing but friendly. To get into our complex, there are 2 gates. If you live at the apartments, you are given a remote that opens the gate of your choosing, but if you don't live at the complex, you have to go through the directory at the front to find the name of the resident you're looking for. Once you have found the resident's name, it appears as the last name in the first initial. It calls the resident's phone and gives the resident a few options. The resident can choose to talk to the person who has called them or decide to let them in by entering in the key code, or they can hang up and the gates will not be opened. Overall, I think this system helped to save me from the situation I got myself into. One night in October, I was driving home from my fiance's house. It was late at night, probably close to 2 a.m. I had just gotten off the freeway and was about to enter in my neighborhood when I was stopped at a traffic light. I was in the left-hand turn lane, and there was one other car in the right-hand turn lane, 2 lanes away from me. The light changed to a green arrow, and I proceeded to turn left, and the car, which had previously been in the right-hand turn lane, maneuvered to follow me. I thought that this was weird because of how many lanes they cut across, but I figured that they were lost and tried not to think about it much. I continued driving down the road and was about ready to make a right-hand turn into my neighborhood and was distressed to see the car turn in right behind me. Still, I ignored my gut feeling and figured they lived in the neighborhood around my complex. I remember thinking that they were driving just a little bit too close, but, again, I tried not to let my anxiety get the best of me. I do have high anxiety, so I figured it was just my brain playing tricks on me. I remember from reading stories on here that the best way to tell if someone is following you is by turning right multiple times to form a square of sorts. I talked myself out of this maneuver. I wish I hadn't. I sped up just a little bit, clicking my gate open, and pulled into the complex. The car followed me, whipped in right behind me. Again, I convinced myself that this was normal. They probably lived in the complex too, right? The gate opens up on the opposite side of the apartments, so you have to drive through the entire complex to get where my apartment is. I drove through quickly. I was prepared to exit the complex just in case the person was still following me, but when I looked at the straightaway right behind me, I realized that there weren't any headlights following me anymore. I laughed at myself for being so nervous and pulled into my parking spot in front of my building. As I parked and prepared to get out of my car, I turned for one last look and realized that the car had been following me and reappeared with its headlights off, and they parked in an unreversed spot just a bit down from my own. I knew that I should have turned my car back and drove away. I knew that there were so many other things I could have done, but in that moment of panic, I jumped out of my car and ran up the steps to my apartment. I double-locked the doors, grabbed a knife, and ran into my room to call my fiancée. I heard someone shouting from outside, which is very unlikely in my complex because it's very quiet, but I refused to listen to what they were saying and told my fiancée what had just happened. I suddenly heard other voices shouting, and then it was silent. I felt an overwhelming sense of dread. I remember not being able to stand because my knees were so shaky, and I tried to stop myself from crying so I would be able to see if someone broke down my door. My fiancé made it to my apartment in record time with a baseball bat to help me ease my mind. He stayed that night and let me sleep with the lights on. I couldn't get the sound of the screaming out of my head. It was obvious they were calling out for someone and figured it must have been me. I assumed the other person screaming must have been another resident who was trying to make the other person be quiet during the early morning hours. I figured this whole situation was over until I woke up in the morning. When I walked downstairs to my car, I discovered that one of my tires had been viciously slashed. I then realized that I had left some mail with my name on it in my car. I didn't think much of that detail until later. I got my tire fixed and tried to push that night out of my mind. A few days later, however, I started receiving calls from the directory in front of my building to let someone in. I wasn't expecting anyone, so I answered it and asked who was calling for me. I was met with silence, so I hung up and didn't grant access to the complex. Again, it happened, and once again, no one answered. They called obsessively from that call box directory for days. I finally snapped into the phone for them to tell me who they were, and a man answered. He told me that he lived in the complex and needed to be let in because he lost his key. He told me he lived in the apartment next to me. I knew the family who lived next to me. There was a woman with 4 children, but no man. And if he really did live there and lost his key, he would have been able to call himself in to open the gate. I told him I didn't believe him and just hung up as he started screaming at me to let him in. The calls continued. Finally, I had enough. I marched to the office the next day and asked them to take my number off the directory. The man was unable to call me now, and I felt at peace. I had warned the office about the man who damaged my car, and they increased the security rounds in the complex for a few months. As anticlimactic as it was, this was thankfully the last contact from that weirdo. I know I handled the situation by not listening to my gut when it told me that something was wrong and was about to get me in trouble. I allowed someone to follow me and learn my name, and they were able to torment me for weeks before I finally took action. I'm just thankful to my fiance and the staff at my apartment complex for helping me take action to stop this creep. This happened to me at least a year ago while at the grocery store with my mother. The sun disappeared from the horizon and darkness took over the night sky as we entered the store. My mother and I were walking through the aisles as my mom was grabbing some sort of potato chip bags. I asked her if I could have the keys to her car because I was getting bored in the store. She said yes and handed the keys over. I walked out of the store, and as I was getting closer to the car, I noticed a man peering through the tinted window of the front seat. He looked in his mid-30s at the most. I immediately slowed down and kinda hid behind another car so he wouldn't notice me. The man eventually walked away and got into some old-looking dark green car. It seemed like the guy was trying to look for valuables or something of worth, but there was really nothing special in the vehicle. I made my way up to the passenger door, unlocked it, and sat down in a comfy chair. I kept my eyes on the green car and noticed the passenger in the front of the seat. I got a little freaked out as I read many stories similar to this situation I was in. I texted my mom asking to hurry up. I was getting pretty nervous and I suspected that something more sinister was going on here. My mom finally arrived 15 minutes later. She put all the groceries in the trunk, and right when she entered the front seat, I told her about the men in the green car. She told me that they were probably going to rob it, but didn't see anything valuable. I asked if we should call the police, but she said they technically haven't done anything wrong. My mom started the car, and we exited the lot. As we took a right turn out of the lot and started driving down a small bridge, I noticed the car speeding up to get behind us. I yelled at my mom, and they were right there. I knew there was something suspicious about them, waiting there for 30 minutes for no reason. My mom has actually experienced being followed by a car before, and that was almost 20 years ago at this point. But she used her strategy from the first time she was followed, and turned off all the headlights on the car and sped off through the side roads to lose them. It was a pretty dangerous strategy, as it was nighttime and you could barely see anything on the streets. We took at least 3 rights, with the car still following us, so my mom used the headlights being off to our advantage, and took another right, and she parked in the nearest driveway with another car in it before the 2 creeps also took that same right. My mom shut off the car. We sat and watched as the green car sped past us down the street. We were both relieved. It was like hiding in plain sight. I think we were really lucky for them not to notice our car in the driveway, but I'm certainly glad they didn't. My heart was pumping pretty fast, and my mom's hands were shaking. I still get chills from thinking what could have happened that night had they have found out where we lived. I think it was pretty clear that some shady stuff was going on that night, and I'm happy I wasn't a victim to it. Hey guys, I just wanted to welcome you back to the channel. I know you're probably wondering where I've been for the past 2 months, or maybe even longer. I think it's getting right at 3 months here. Um, I'm really sorry I haven't been posting over the last 3 months. It's just been pretty hectic for me. Been super busy with work and a couple other things. And I'm glad to be back. I'm gonna hopefully be putting a lot more content out lately. I just kind of some things going on and kind of had to step away for a while, and uh, being away for a while made me realize how much I miss it. I love putting out these videos and putting out any form of entertainment for you guys. I hope you guys are still there. I hope I still got my loyal subscribers. I know now I'm at 10,000, so I'm pretty thankful for that. So I just wanted to put this at the end of the video to kind of update you guys on what's been going on. I feel like it's a little better than just like putting a comment on my video or putting it in the description, because people might not read it. But anyway, I'm going to try to post another video later on this week. I hope to get this one up by Monday, and keep looking out for new content on the channel. One other thing I wanted to say is that I did start a new vlog channel. Actually, me and my girlfriend started a new vlog channel, and I want you guys, all my subscribers, anybody who wants to see just fun vlogs. We only have one up right now. Probably by the time that this video gets posted, we'll have another one. But we're actually going to post weekly vlogs on that channel, doing fun stuff like well, you know what? I don't really want to spoil it for you. If you're interested, go check out the channel, subscribe, like the videos. Just show some support if you're interested in it. If not, I understand. I know you come here to get scared and watch scary videos. I totally understand that. But I'll post a link to that channel in the description and in the comment section. But hope you guys enjoyed this video, and stay tuned for more stuff.